and gentlemen. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. I'm wearing the red. Definitely wearing the red. Definitely have some of it on. Definitely, ooh, gone a bit blurry there. Come on out. I hope that the dubbing's all right. I hope that I've had so much problem with dubbing on this thing. Hello to X. Hello to everyone. I'm going to take these off now. I'm going to take these off. Oh my God, my eyes. Yeah, it's been a long day, a long week. Woohoo. Hey there. Look at these people here. I am always expecting no one to be here. So, hi everybody. If only UK. Whoa, yeah, indeed. John Pass, I'm really excited. I'm excited about today. Ellen, you're here. I didn't know if you were going to be here or not. So, hello. I hope you didn't break a dinner date to come out and spend a Sunday night with me. I hope you still got to have your din-dins, as they would say in London way. Rossworth, how's it going? Oh man, this is exciting. Kelly Pierce, hello. Thank you. You have really helped me. Your support, and DC's here. I'm happy to see you. Happy to see everybody here. It's really exciting. This is an exciting one. This is extremely exciting. I'm looking at the chat here, and I'm seeing all of this. Aldous Huxley clique going to be worried. Oh yes. Let's show that up. Let's show that up. What does that say? That says Aldous Huxley clique going to be worried. Yes, I think so. I do think that they're going to be worried, and damn right they're going to be worried. Now, you're coming through on YouTube and X at the moment. I hope it's all working on Rockfin. I'm going to try and keep a look on the chat, but it doesn't seem to come up through here. So I hope that if you're watching this on Rockfin, that I don't miss you out. But yes, you want to know what I've been doing. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Nice to be around some more friends. I have been a deep dark. I mean, I usually have quite a high output of like videos to mixed in with the research I'm doing, because otherwise, if I just did research and articles, then I would go away into a room for 100 years and hide away and squirrel away, and I'd be researching and typing, and then I'd come out with an article all of a sudden, and then I'd disappear again, and everybody forgets you pretty soon. It's hard to get traction and keep traction with something like this. So I try and keep an eye on eye on the ball. I try and keep my foot in the ground, my chicken in the fight. I don't know if any of these analogies work. And I try and make sure that I always have an output of videos. And I know it's been a little slower than usual. I've had a podcast come out recently, Jason Horsley, and that was a really good podcast. Enjoyed that one. It was interesting. I don't necessarily agree with everything people see in the future, but I love mixing it up. And I got a very different one coming up next time with Fox Green, an extremely interesting guy who has a much more positive spin on how we can make in a sense a space commune in the future. So I've got stuff like that coming out, and I tried to keep a little bit coming out, but I've had something special, something that's taken up a lot of my time, something which has been really important. Can boost comments. There's some destination. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on the old comments. But there's been I've been really working hard on this one. I've been really working hard. And as you may have seen, if you had seen the title page, if you've seen the cover, then you would have seen that there was a couple of famous people hanging around with Jordan B. Peterson. Oh my God, what have I been up to? Well, everybody knows my articles often mean going back in history and going back in time, and I love to go back in time. And I'm a time traveling adventurer. I can't help it. I go back in time, and then I try and build context to try and understand what was happening at the time at a certain region, at someone's life. So I've done that at such a small scale that when I kind of know a lot of history, I know a lot of history of certain areas. I'm like really good on stuff that was probably before 1860 and anything after World War too, but all of the stuff in the middle, a little bit rocky on here and there, and a load of other stuff I'm not sure about historically, and only in some parts of the world as well. Well, every time I do research, I end up swallowing up information easier and better. And I go and I learn about context of a certain place, and then I know that forever. And I go on to the next place. And now I've learned to kind of just swallow up information as much as I can. And this project has been very important. So I'm about to do something, and I'll show you a preview of this. Is a prototype cover. It might not end up being these titles. I'm really excited about this. Oh my God. Oh, hello there, Anna. How's it going? I'm going to show you something. So I'm going to show you the titles. Here we go. Are you ready? Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready for this? I'm not sure if everybody is ready for this. This is a new show that I've created, and it is going to cause trouble. It is going to cause issues, but it's not meant necessarily in the most negative way, but it worked upon a premise. And that premise was that the people who get to the top, the people who get to the most power, are possibly and probably from the same bloodlines. And the more bloodlines they have, the more collection, the more powerful they are. So if you've got one powerful bloodline, it goes up to, like, you get to this sort of level. If you've got two powerful bloodlines and three powerful bloodlines, and a multitude of powerful bloodlines, then you've got the most powerful people in the world. So that's how a lot of us in the independent media see that power structure, how that power structure works. And I think it's really nuanced. It's really hard to work out. And so you have to base what you do when you're investigating upon a premise. If this is true, then I should be able to follow this down and gain some sort of evidence that this is true. So this first episode is a very quick clip. It's only a minute. It's only a quick show of the intro, of what the intro will be. This has been a lot of work because I've gone back quite far. We'll talk about this now. But I think you'll recognize the person who's now the subject of the first episode of a show called Who Do They Think They Are?, which tracks and follows in as much of the bloodlines as I possibly can find, and you'll see what I mean.
Students ask me sometimes why study history. It's like, well, because history is about you. That's why. It's like history tells you who you are. You can't because you only live a little while. How the hell can you figure out who you are? So you need all this collective wisdom and all this dream-like information and all this mythology and all this narrative to inform you about what you are beyond what you see of yourself. Unless you're aware of the heroic stories of the past and the metaphysics of consciousness, let's say, because you don't know what you are, what you could be, because you're a historical creature.
Yes, the first episode of Who Do They Think They Are will be on the infamous Jordan Bernd Peterson, who's obviously an influential character. And I think it's his positives, his positive outputs, significantly larger than his negative outputs. That's the best way I'd put it. I went through a hard time once upon a time, and I listened to his Bible lectures and his personality lectures, three times the Bible lectures, and I really enjoyed them. Really interesting way of thinking about things. And Jordan B. Peterson is an extremely interesting man. So what I did was say comprehensively, I'm not going to just do what I do with like anybody who knows my work on Bill Gates will know that I followed the Gates line back. So William Gates the third, William Gates the second, William Gates the first, Joseph Stanton Gates, Israel Gates, back to the ancestors of Stephen Gates the first, where you get back to then Eustace Gates, and then Jeffrey Gates the third, Sir Jeffrey Gates the third, Sir Jeffrey Gates the second, Sir Jeffrey Gates the first, and that's the line of one of the lines, because you see, and I explain this within the first episode. You'll have two parents, you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, you have 16 great-great-grandparents, you have 32 great-great-great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, increasing exponentially through time. And all of those people's stories have been this melee of drama and tragedy and history. You're historical creatures. I couldn't have found someone who's more perfect to start upon than Jordan Peterson, because he has a good understanding of history, and he encourages people to search through their history to help them understand who they are. And that journey, that'll help us both. That won't only help me understand things, or Jordan Byrne Peterson understand his own ancestry, but that'll help us all understand that by the time you get back 20 generations, you're a million people. You've got a million ancestors all dotted around the place. Direct line, of course, you're not that many, but you're lots. What, like 20,000 or something? You go, keep going. It keeps doubling. And lots of people say, "Oh, everybody's related to Genghis Khan or something like this." And there is truth into it, but people don't understand how big, like, all of these. It doesn't make any sense either. You try and think about it. 2 people, 4 people, 8 people, 16, 32, so on and so forth, till you're working in numbers that you can't even imagine. And all of those people make you up. Like, you're not, if you find out you're related to Genghis Khan in the past, it does not mean you're Genghis Khan. It means you're the million things that came after the primordial ooze, or whatever you believe was the moment of creation, and Garden of Eden, if you want. Or if you're Jordan Peterson, he'd be more likely to go over to the biblical explanation of things. Or whether you're from another religion who believes the creation myth, whatever. We're so many people. We made up of so many things. And then you go back and you kind of like, you get real perspective about what's happened, especially over the past, say, 500 years. So I'm just going to have a little look. If anybody's got any questions about this, please feel free to answer. Sorry, my cat, I don't know if you can hear my cat's whining in the distance. She's about to come in and go, meow. She's got a little Hitler mustache as well, so she's trouble. There is the world is not as simple as we want to think it is, but it's not that complicated either. We get to where we are because of influence in some way, shape, or form, whether it was just our dad's influence on our mum, if you know what I mean. But I can tell you from a little extract of Jordan Byrne Peterson's life that he partly got to where he was because his family in Norway built a boat and said, we're going to travel across to the New World. Only in the 1800s, it's like not that long ago, they were just like, do exactly what you'd expect as Scandinavians. Shall we go across to the New World? Oh yes, we probably should go across to the New World. How are we going to get? Should we go on steamliner? No, I think we should just build a boat. And then off they went across and they landed in New York and went off to the New World. And they made a decision. You learn a little bit about, only a little bit about Jordan Peterson's like current ancestors. There's no point in stopping in there. This is about going back through history, and through it, it's like a really good route to understanding history, to understanding all of these different people's lives and the situations they were living in, because in country-wise, we are all from, we all have these relations dotted about the place from all different parts of the world who did all different weird parts of jobs, but they all lived during the same times in these same areas with the same boundaries of law and justice and human order. Now, I'm gonna ask one question to everybody, and if you know the answer, if you, because there's one or two people like Ellen, I've talked to her about some of this. I'm not sure if any of you can guess, but can you guess roughly how far I can get back in one of Jordan Peterson's lines? What's the furthest do you think I can get back in time? And we'll answer this by the end. And I don't know if there's a winner, then that'll be interesting. If there's a winner, I may give you something. Who knows? I don't know what I can give you. It's probably just love, right? So I'm just gonna have a look at some of these. Oh, hello. My mum said that her dad's family is descended from the Earls of Derby. Still waiting for my place at that table. Well, my friend, if you're talking, DC, about the Earls of Derby, would you be talking about the first, the second, third, and fourth Earl of Derby? Because that would be really interesting if you were. The Henry Stanley was the Sir Henry Stanley. Some called him Hendrik. Was the fourth Earl of Derby. He was a very important man. His father, I can't remember if I think his father might be a William Stanley, and then maybe it was one of them's called Ferdinando, but there's an Edward, there's a Thomas, there's a William, and the Stanley family goes back to the first Earl of Derby. No. The first Earl of Derby had lots of issues. They all had lots of issues. They all had lots of children. So each of them had 10 children. Yeah. 5 to 10 children, because some wouldn't survive, and they would go on to have loads more. And the Stanley family married everywhere, because if DC here is saying that he's descended from one of the Earls of Derby, and if it's the fourth, third, well, it would be the fourth, third, or second Earl of Derby. It couldn't be the first. Maybe it's only the third, fourth, and third. Then that means you're directly related to Henry VII. That's it. There's no doubt about it. You are directly related to Henry VII, because if you're related to the fourth, say, and I know that sounds complicated, but if down the mother's line they married into the Stanley family, you might not be completely from that line because of how it works. But basically, if you were the first Earl of Derby, you would be Henry VII's grandfather, the grandfather, step-grandfather, however, father-in-law. That's the one. You'd be his father-in-law. Something along those lines. Anyway, the Plantagenets married, Henry VII married into a Plantagenets. So if you're directly related to the Plantagenet, to that Henry VII, it means you're directly related to the Plantagenet throne as well, which means you go up to Edward IV and so on, etc. Up. I know this because the Stanleys get everywhere, man. The Stanleys get everywhere. And my friends, that was this is really interesting that this is the first thing that comes up. I'm really excited by this. This is really intense because that was a point where, number one, I could say your family could be wrong, and Jordan Peterson's family line also could be wrong about his relationship to Henry Stanley, the fourth Earl of Derby, because the ancestry sites link anybody who underneath. Link anybody in the generation underneath whose name's Stanley, automatically link it to Henry Stanley, the fourth Earl of Derby, where he had a cousin probably second cousin, says something along those lines, who was also called Henry Stanley, who was the one of the Dukes of Orton, Knight of Orton. It was, and they were different places. Derby is a different place from Orton, and they were the line of the Bickerstaff, the Earls of Bickerstaff. So they're a different line, but the ancestry sites, if people go just down the ancestry sites and don't actually check, because I found it in a book that had been written by the Stanley's descendants, that the Bickerstaffs were actually related to the other Henry of Orton, rather than, and that means a massive difference, because hey, if you go down the one line, you're directly related to Henry VII, yeah. Due to his daughter, the favored sister of Henry VIII, Mary Tudor, who was Queen of France at one point. She married a guy. Oh God, I got a lot of names in my head. I can tell you that I got a lot of names. She married quite a famous knight, begins with a B, and he was. They had the line that leads down to the Stanleys. Mary Stanley eventually marries then into a family called the Wookiee family. Yes, cat. Hello. My cat has come to say hello. So there you go. Silly hit the moustache on her. Yes, she's a very nice girl though. So yes, if you are related to the Earl of Derby, then you've got to find out which Earl of Derby it is, because that makes a big difference to what your line is. And it also means that you could be you're probably related to Henry VII if it is the Earl of Derby. But if they followed the line down using an ancestry tool, they want to check it and double check it, because that you will come a cropper. However, if say for instance that you weren't related to that Henry of Derby, and they actually find out you're related to the other Henry of Derby, that is also a massive line, because that's a direct ancestor of Charlemagne through marriage. So if you go the one way, you go through the Tudors and the Plantagenets, and you go the other way, you get to the mother of William the Conqueror. Yes, the mother of William the Conqueror, Helena de Falaise, who was Duke Robert came down and saw her bathing in the river and said, "Oh, I'm going to take her as my concubine," and etc. William the Conqueror. Yeah, it's an interesting, like, to go through history. You get back to a point where there's been so many people involved in linked to our creation. There's so many different ancestors, they had so many sisters, cousins, whatever, they had so many sisters and brothers all over the place as well, who had their own ancestral line. But you still get back, and it's less people, so it causes the mind to have, it's hard on the mind, isn't it? You got less people, yet you're related to loads of these people. So you end up being related to a lot of the less of people. And what I find is that you have like different echelons of power in the family lines that is very nuanced. And I don't know if all of it is culture, or if some of it is artificially driven. But anyway, Dark Commission, thank you for mentioning that. That's really interesting. If you're actually related to the Earl of Derby, then you are probably related to Henry VII through the young Queen Mary. Baldwin, maybe it was a Baldwin his name was. I can't remember. They were saucy. Mary Tudor, because she's a Mary Tudor, so she's the she's the sister of Henry VIII, and she was really saucy. Her and this guy, Barlow, Baldwin, whatever his name is, they went. They weren't allowed to marry. She was sold off really to the king of France. And so she became the Queen of France. And she longed for this other guy. And then the king died. The King of France died. So she was like, "Ooh." And this night, maybe it's Baldwin, said to the king, "Oh, I want to go get her." And he's like, "Okay, get her, but you've got to promise not to marry her. And I know you're really in love with her, so you better not marry her." And he went over there, and well, just a matter of circumstance unfolded, and before you knew it, they were married. And they got back, and they were in trouble, and it showed the king's forgiveness and all of this sort of stuff. But it's all, a lot of it is just like trite nonsense given to us by the ruling class, by the people above us. A lot of these stories are just ways for us to perceive them as having very human lives and having interactions. Been doing some genealogy, not sure. Well, Dark Commission, you've been here supporting me from the start. If you want any help and you want a tip or two about doing the genealogy, man, there's loads of places you can get tripped up. Loads of places. That was a tricky one. Seeing those two with different the technology is built in two ways. Listen, I'm going to talk conspiracy. I'm not sure if you've ever known that I'm a conspiratorial minded type of fella. Yes, but I'm going to talk conspiracy about ancestral websites. I'm going to talk conspiracy. Let me see. William Penn. Ooh, that's interesting. Hilarious hoodie. Yes. Stolen. It is stolen. Caleb, are you talking about the hoodie there? Sorry, I just it says "Bank America Great Again." It is it's from a Chilean thrift store apparently, but I stole it, so I'm happy to have it. That's it. He gets on my nerves. Yeah, there's a few celebrities. Ellen says, anyone see Gigi debate? That guy was debating, looked like he was Norwegian. Damn Norwegians! Yeah, no, those Norwegians are all right. Oh, look, the guess is coming up. 1700s. No, much earlier than that. You're not even trying. Sean, 500. I love how you're not saying AD or BC on this. 1150. No, Sean, the answer is not 500. This is 257. Patricia, my love. Yazzie, you're well out. 1150. Patricia, my love, I'm afraid no is the answer. I've gone earlier than 257 AD. I gone earlier. Yeah, she's pretty. She's done pretty good though. Yeah, I wonder why the 257. I think that was the earliest date on. Right. Oh, you clever. She looked at the dates. No. Right. I'd say keep guessing. But start adding a clue is just start adding AD or BC, so I know if you're getting closer. Yeah, you have to understand, once you're past 800 AD, you're into stories that have been told, Romans sort of. I mean, you're into scholars who write the history, but they usually have a patron who is obviously going to influence them in some way. So it's not really that much different than the mainstream media today, if you think about it that way. So you can be wrong on many accounts, but there's conflicting sources with these things. But some of it is due to the amazing record keeping, usually through spoken word tradition, sometimes in writing, places like Wales, yay, but old Wales, which is fantastic, and the Romans, of course. I think probably the Frankish dynasty after Charles Martel started to put down So that's probably about 800 AD, started to put down a lot of the stories that have been told for many years. But there was lots of writing back in the day. And if you come from the big lines, you can go back quite far. You can go back through the kings and queens of the Vikings or the kings and queens of the Welsh, because, it's like in the Bible, I suppose if you use a Bible as a source, you've got so-and-so was father and so-and-so was father, so-and-so was father, so-and-so. And you have very much the same in the Vikings. That Ragnarsson is the son of Ragnar. That anyway from Norwegian because of the way names work, that you'll learn in the first episode as well. But no, 257 now. Gonna have to start putting AD or BC. Just having a little read here. I'm going to have to do some serious digging. Yeah, isn't it the way? Isn't it the way? Ellen's talked a lot about the Mormon records, which I've been trying to get into the Mormon records and have a look into them. But man, there's really good sources nowadays. There's really good sources. But you don't go by just clicking like ancestral sites and trust in ancestral sites. Cross-reference them and look for where you find something where someone's just suddenly made a big leap, because everybody makes big leaps all of the time, and sometimes you have to be able to get back. Sometimes you have to. So I mean, that's historically so. That's why I say anything back past a certain time, it's like the records are a little bit dodgy. We don't even know what was destroyed, what records that were destroyed that would have told another story over that period. Right, let's have a look. Oh, good. My great Yazzie, hello, says my great granddad came from Newport, South Wales, with his ice cream business. Boo, Newport! They're the next city over from where I am now. We dislike each other immensely just because we're next door to each other. It's that sort of rivalry. It's very good. Does the name Pennington Haywood ring any bells in your research? No, Pennington Haywood doesn't, but that sounds like an American name, doesn't it? That sounds like now I've been working on someone else's family tree at the same time, and my own family tree. What I'll probably do is do maybe it's time intensive. I need support and help. If you could support and help this, this is like I am working really hard to put in as much effort, but I do need help. So any help is wonderful, even if it's a lag, a share or whatever. But this is time intensive work. I want to produce probably about 5 of powerful people after this, and then do my own, so that everybody can see my own history there. So that there's definitely nothing nefarious out there. I've already started my own, but the other one I've been doing has been for a wonderful lady, Laurie. She's just brilliant. I mean, wow, brilliant. And she hired me to look through her ancestry, which is much needed support to have right now. And I really appreciate it. And I went through I'm still going through a family history, and oh my God, it goes back and back and back. There's so many more lines, because with Jordan Peterson's, you can only find a few lines, because a lot of it either goes back to Norwegians, and I don't want to belittle Norway at all. Don't mean to. Sorry, Norway, for what I'm about to say next. But the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, they weren't necessarily the Norwegian finest hours. The Norwegian, Danish, their finest hour was in the time of the Vikings, when technology meant they were one of the dominant forces in the region, and they could relocate quickly to better climes, and they had a different kind of lifestyle. And then the kings and queens of the Vikings married and got given into families, given land in Normandy, That's pre-William the Conqueror. So for people who don't know, everybody knows about the Vikings, and they were a pain in the ass. And France was having trouble. They had all of these coastal villages, and the Vikings would come in. The Vikings weren't ones they weren't ones to mess about. They'd come in and they'd take their slaves, and they'd completely and utterly rinse the land of everything, and they caused mayhem. So eventually what they said was they settled with a guy called Rollo. They said, you can be what was really became the first Duke of Normandy, that line, in about 800. I think this is about 800. They said, you can have Normandy. So cleverly, the Frankish kings said, well, they keep attacking us on the coast because they're so good with their ships, but they're not so good on land. Yeah. So why don't we just give them the coast? And then they can't attack us inland anyway. And we know the boundaries. And that's exactly what happened. And rise this dukedom of Normandy, this very powerful thing that would lead to William the Conqueror. That's a direct ancestors, because Robert, Duke of Normandy, was his father. I think it was his father, Robert the Fearless, I think it was. And that would lead to the taking of the Britain by the Normans, and the installation of Normans in every single area of the land, which was basically the power base installing its governors with a system, a family system that would keep power and absorb wealth from every area, and that would always rise up to the monarchy or the state as and when necessary. So I don't remember where I started, but that's how it is. Oh. Well, Dark Commission's doing quite well. He's named. He said, ancestry websites harvesting your data, and he said some. I'm not sure what you responded to. The 1500 BC due to Brutus, or Albine. I have got back to a guy called King Brutus. That's all. I mean, and that by that time it's precarious, and he was born in Rome and died in Britain, in what is old Roman Britain apparently, and that's pretty early. That's a good clue. 1 BC, Yazzie. No, it was before 1 BC. A long time before 1 BC. There were a few generations in between this and that. It's quite amazing how far you can go back. But when you get back to that time, that's the time of the Roman emperors, and there is a couple of lines within these trees. Listen, if you're related to a king or a queen, or a earl or something like this down the line, then you go back in time, you'll always discover you're related to another 4 kings and 5 kings, because kings and queens of different countries marry off their children to other kings and queens. So for every queen or king made, that means there's 2 kings and queens usually, or a prince and princess, or an earl and whatever, the count and countess. I don't know what a female earless, or maybe it's heiress. Maybe that's what heiress means. Anyway, there's always more and more and more exponentially up. So as soon as you're related to one, you're related to loads of them. And it's who keeps the records and what does that all mean is what most of the questions are from the conspiratorial web, where I am there. They do harvest DNA. Yeah, if you send your DNA, they'd be marketing those DNA packs at me. They'd be marketing at me. Khalil Sheikh says they use DNA to make bioweapons. It's true. It's true. I tell you what, I've done a lot of research on that. I got an article that I'd love to get out somewhere. I might just end up publishing more regularly on Newspace, but I was hoping to be able to sell one of the articles about the kind of the birth of vaccine technology, and it kind of like it's involved with the birth of bioweapons as well. Really comes from the same time. The time where they started really experimenting on people and spreading viruses on purpose to test these vaccines out. That was all around the same time. It's been between like 19. My best estimate is like of where it really got into gear is between 1910 and 1917. There's a massive period of time where stuff happened around the world that was really important. A series of events that led to the paradigms that we saw during the pandemic. Completely. That's when the masks were invented by the same people who were hanging around with the people who invented the vaccine technologies, with the people who, and they were a very small bunch of people, really small bunch of people, but all end up, of course, in things like Porton Down. Yeah, it's true. If you want to help me become a patron, buy me a coffee or on Ko-Fi or whatever. Not. I don't mind a bit of that. Please help. I do need to. I'm hoping that lots of Norwegian jokes in Minnesota. That's not a surprise. That's let me. One of course, Jordan Peterson's family have been from Saskatchewan, Nicam, in Alberta, Canada. So they just up from that way, and they had, some of them settled in Minnesota, and for a while they were in North Dakota too. There's a lot of that area is where the traveling through of these German town and Dutch town people come riding up and get that far and say, okay, let's find land around here. Norwegians invented NATO. Alan also says, not a surprise, really, is it? Well, I was thinking about this as well today with, the Yemeni strikes, and they're using the excuse about naval bombardment or potential naval bombardment as being an excuse for warfare. And that's been something that, naval conflicts historically have always like sparked incidents that then spark major wars or can spark major wars. And that marries well with the fact that when I trace people who work in intelligence in the late 90s, a lot of them, if they get rumbled, like in Pablo Miller, the guy who was recruited by Christopher Steele and ran Sergei Skripal, amongst others. He was high level sort of intelligence agents hanging around in the Estonian embassy, and a load of other people there, of course, during the late 90s would have also been spies in disguise as embassy workers, and once he got rumbled in 1999 noughties time, he legged it, and so did a load of other people. Suddenly changed their career paths, and then afterwards they've all been in like even intelligence or disappeared and gone into maritime stuff, because it seems that is a really good way. If they can influence the fears of the maritime community, that can really go towards sparking a war. So I'm not surprised about that. Interesting. Okay, right. Going back a bit here. Interestingly, Princess Diana was directly descended from ancient British royalty. This would then give Prince William a proper British bloodline and not German. Yeah, that is true. I notice you don't say Prince Harry, but both would probably be true. And to be honest, all would be true, because you go back to that time and they're all a mixture, mostly a mixture. Yeah, people don't really understand what that means, but that piece, that ability to marry into each other's family meant a lot. And the Spencer family were high up royals for a long time. If you're going back to say early 1400s, just as the Tudors dynasty is about to really start, and the Edward IV's been beaten, then you get like before then you get lots of Spencers hanging around, and then they married into bloodlines. But a lot of the time, the females Spencers lose their name, but that Spencer is still within the lines, and everybody within those lines know they're related to a Spencer as well. And Spencers were a big line; they were a really big line, but they will be related. Husband's Di used to make jokes about her husband's German family, so William is also German. Harry or Di, yeah, sorry, Di. Harry is no German blood. On the other hand, I think he will. You'll have loads of German blood. You'll have loads of German blood in there. I promise you. I promise you. Did you read 20? Hello, Gaffer Ahmed. Did you read 2025 Mandate for Leaders? Is it true that in the book Trump promised to limit or reduce the deep state? Yeah, but everybody promises to limit or reduce the deep state, but then they get in bed with the deep state because otherwise the deep state will kill you. It's how it works. It is known. It is known. There will be literal. There is literal swastika on the NATO flag. For those who look carefully, yes, I don't think you have to look too carefully. And DC was saying the Stuarts were the last true British monarchs. Oh, Charles I and Charles II. Yeah, in a sense, but there's also like some of the bloodlines within those that married into the families and were fathers of kings, were mothers of kings and queens and stuff, are related to Ethelred the Unready and or Alfred the Great and the great kings of Wessex. And remember, once you get back to one of those, you go back. That's direct ancestry all the way back. Then you got the records because kings and queens are known. The kings and queens are known. And in response, Ellen says, yes, I know that's why Diana was always making snide remarks about her German in-laws. Yes, NATO, OTAN. That's what's being said on the old Rockfin. I don't think it's true. I think he's just selling the narrative to win the election. Yeah, it's true. Then the establishment should prevent him to running in the election, just like Pakistan establishment did with Imran Khan. Listen, Pakistan establishment is run by the deep state. If the Pakistanis, if you mess around with Pakistani intelligence, you're as dead as a doornail. If you think you're going to go against Pakistani intelligence, you're as dead as a doornail. And the Western world can't do anything about it. What they did with Benazir Bhutto and her father, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, is crazy. It's like a crazy history of murder in Pakistan. It's crazy. So, yeah. I'm not sure if we'd want to adopt any of the Pakistani lines on intelligence and how to tackle things. Diana, wait! Diana allegedly was a Merovingian. Okay, right. Well, I have been going across Merovingian and Carolingian kings and queens. Yeah, I mean, once you go back to one of the big royal bloodlines, you're going back there. If you go back to one, like I say, you end up back with the Merovingian kings. You end up being directly related to Merovingian kings and queens. You just can't get away with it if you go back to one. That's it. And you've got okay. The chance that you're, and think about it. This is a real simple way. I know the chance. Think about this. What's the chance that your mum or dad is a Merovingian king, a queen? I think it's slim to piddling, is what my nan would say. Slim to piddling. What's the chance that your granddads and grandmothers are Merovingian kings? Very unlikely. Very unlikely. Keep going back. 2, 4, blah, 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 blah. You've got like, say, 50,000 direct ancestors, 60,000, maybe more than that, 70,000 direct ancestors by the time you get back to the Merovingian kings and queens. So you're Merovingian, I suppose, yeah, and Carolingian kings and queens around 600. I mean, it's testing me on my knowledge, but I'd say safe between 600 and 800 AD. You're saying those are that's some of the range, and then you're related to all of kings and queens like Pepin the Short, who was the father of Charlemagne, of course. But kings and queens of Italy, kings and queens of Denmark, Germany, it doesn't matter. They were all marrying into each other by that certain point. Merovingian kings and queens married their daughters off and sons off to loads of different people, and they're soup. Amazing. I still can't, it doesn't answer like ancestry and how it multiplies still causes like boggles my brain. But after a certain time, you just gotta say, okay, there's what's the chance that your great times probably about 45 or 50 generational ancestor, great grandfather is a Merovingian king. Well, the chance is much higher than your parents are Merovingian kings. Much higher. Much greater chance. I mean, you're like in 1 in 4 chance by that point. I know it sounds and it boggles my brain, but you're like in 1 in 4. If you go back to one of these ancestors, one of these many hundreds of thousands of ancestors that sprawled, because you're going back to one time and you say, oh, it's 100,000, and the last was like 200,000 or a million or etc. And it goes on like that. That's each generation. So those then multiply how many people were within those generations. There's the chances that you're related. It's mind-boggling. So yes, I wouldn't be surprised that Diana was a Merovingian. Oopsie, sorry. I'm looking for the abusive one. Yeah, what's going on there? Say what? Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Anna. Bro, Merlin is here. Oh, dude, I come across a Merlin in time. I tell you, there was I can tell you one of the people who Jordan Peterson is definitely related to. Here you go. Drum roll, please. Robin Hood. Would you guessed it? Robin Hood. I really mean it. His name was, I think it was Richard Falk or something like that. I know his first name was something really, but it was Falk, I think it was, the third, who was what Robin Hood, the life Robin Hood was based upon, apparently. He's a direct relation. All royal roads to lead to Merovingian. Yes, they do. There's some weird stuff about the ritual nature of a killing, but also the nature of a burial on a little island. Yeah, I mean, that's something I can, that is definitely something that I can look through her ancestry, and I bet you'd find some stories in the past, and you wonder, are people a representation of every story that's been before them in a moment? I know that sounds nuts, but that's how history works. It's nuts. The burial was very strange. Yes, it was. And there is, you can ask the question. Do you think that she was going to be sacrificed? She fired her security. There's. I think at some point though, you've got to say that there's a malevolent force that wanted to keep her power within a certain area, and she left that area, and that was not acceptable. But maybe it's because she had gone outside bloodlines. Oh, there you go. What about Welsh bloodlines to Ruderick? Well, then you're going to be going the Gwilym ap Griffith ap so and so, etc. And I have been down that line on this. That's how I get back to. Is that how? That's how I get back to King Brutus. I mean, but then you're talking. It's mind-bogglingly amount of people. Now that's the thing. It's mind-boggling, But then you get back a certain way and you realize there's got to be a lot of cousins sleeping with each other. Just saying, maybe even a brother or sister here or there, and other things written down. And some people are unknowns, which I think we all know what an unknown means in history. Okay. Merlin is Taliesin, isn't he? Well, yeah, I was talking about another Merlin. I came across a Merlin in Welsh, one of the Welsh kings, something at Merlin or something like that. And I was like, ooh, I wonder if that's any relation, like how it's gone down, how often. But I when I was growing up in the 17th century, which is hard to grasp for most people because I was in the sealed knot. So I actually knew a load of people called Merlin, because people called Merlin who are called Merlin are tempted towards 17th century reenactment societies. Just the way it is. Merlin by name, Merlin by nature. You know what they say, that old expression. Rosworth, do you know King Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler? I'm not joking. Google it. No, it would be true. That's what I mean. I mean, once you're related to one, you're related to them all. And Vlad the Impaler, it's not too hard to get back to Vlad the Impaler. Those lines, if you're going down the Henry VII line, you may also get to that area, because you get down that line, you get back to Bela of Hungary, Bela the Fourth of Hungary. You get back to the kings and queens of Serbia and Croatia, and where over on the west, the Frankish king was marrying his daughter off to some Danish king or some German king, etc. They were doing the same in Eastern Europe, and it was all fluxed around the place. And then every now and again, you'd have a long distance marriage. You'd have someone, when I say long distance, Hungary and Germany isn't that much of a long distance. And then you have a German princesses, loads of them, who are all married across Europe. And that means all of these, just have to have one of those in your bloodline to suddenly have been not only Vlad the Impaler, like everybody has a bit of Vlad the Impaler in them. That's a famous song, isn't it? Was he? Wow, Ollie's granddad comes in with the winning line. There you go. To be fair, Diana was the only lizard worth a shag. That's a classic line. Tell you're a man of the past. My dad would have liked that line, or will like that line if he ever watched, but he hasn't got a clue what's going on at the moment. Right. Okay. Got the answer. Don't need to answer this question. If anyone's got any more questions, then please feel free to ask. I'm just gonna go through some of the other stuff in a bit as well that I've been up to. Things I got some really interesting. That podcast I was doing with Fox Green, was really, really interesting, because I love to speak to the people on who I feel contradict me and what I view as right, as much as possible. But you always find things that bring you together. And I would have thought, if I just read his bio down, that I would be averse to most of what he believed in, and I wasn't at all. I found it really interesting. It's a really interesting. We've got, listen, one of the things we're missing in the world right now is a load of positivity. We're missing a load of positivity, and us in the independent media can easily go into a spiral of negativity. And we do it because we're lacking context, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. Who do they think they are? I wanted to go through the bloodlines to give context, because I get to go through history then, and I get to show people the stories of the past, and people realize that they're a collection of more than just one or two people. You're a collection of millions of people. It's amazing. It's honestly mind-boggling how many people you're related to, and all of those stories, all of those journeys, they all happened. They all were full of everything you can imagine. They were a saga, epic saga, just to get you to where you are. That is like mind-blowing stuff. So it's a real positive thing, though, because it helps fill up context, and context is what the contextualless arguments are why we all have or is why we all have violence, or like outbreak of violence, because we take the context out of things, and as soon as you drop context, you can do what Israel is doing now. For instance, you drop context. If the world happened, everything in the world happened after October the 7th, then this is what the world should look like. Definitely. But I want to see more positivity. I want to be more positive. I need to be more positive myself, because like I've had so much negativity in my life, and I'm just fed up of it. I always used to think that I was wrong about being positive, because people had always convinced me that I was wrong, and that was the negativity of me being wrong. And what I was wrong about was just that, that thing. I don't need to be, I don't need to be afraid of the fact I know some things, but I also know that I know nothing. I also know that all of this stuff is just all story and narrative to make sense of this illusion, which is life, where we live in a body which we're not even sure what's going on most of the time, and we all speculate and we all worry. Once you work out that we're all in the same boat and we all know as much or as little as the next person, then you don't have too much in the way of fear anymore. And you just realize that it's either zeros or ones, my brothers and sisters. It's either zeros or ones. You either are or you are not interested. Either you are and you want to be involved in this human experience with other people, or you don't want to be involved and you're fed up of people and humans. You're either in or you're out. And you meet people. I meet people all the time, and I say to them, hi, how are you? And they go, yeah. And I know that there's no point. I've just got flashed to 0. Maybe one day there'll be a 1, but likely it's just going to be 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 all of the time. And Mr. 1 turns into a 0 eventually, doesn't he? Like all people who just accept interaction with zeros end up being a 0 because they're cancelled out. That's kind of like the game theory of social interaction. Like, is just we're just going from we need to be more positive. We need to have ones. We need to have better interactions. That includes with people who we're on the other side of, and I find it really easy to find common ground. I'm that person. I've always been really, but there's no point in trying to find common ground with someone who's only flicking zeros at you, because the only common ground you've got is in the 0 area, and I'm not interested in going there. I don't want to go there anymore. I don't want to hang around in that world. That world is a thing of the past. We should all leave it behind, and we should all be saying 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all of the time. All of the time. I love it, Rosworth. I love you, but when people say search for Prince Charles, Vlad the Impaler, I'm always like, yeah, search for it, and then you'll get the most maddest results as well. Yeah, I mean, yeah, those are the. Not saying that it's wrong, but oh man, it's how people like. I'm always like, when I say to someone like, go search for this, I realize it's a lot of the time it's zeros and ones. They're gonna go and learn it if they want to, and most of the time you're not going to convince people of it. It's sorry, I've had a lot of experiences recently like that. A lot of strange interactions. People get angry with some of the things I say. Sometimes about RFK Jr. People do like him. So what have you got? You could do with reading. You could do with reading the Wilson and Blackett books on British, Welsh, and ancient history. It's all from written records. Yeah, that's a lot of the sources you find from a wide range of sources that have come up with their ideas, often not from the writings or from later stories. So it's good to see. I mean, this is what I'm saying about Welsh. The Welsh really did note a lot down early on. They were hot on it, and they knew what information needed to be kept. Wales is. I'm fantastically proud to be Welsh. Fantastically proud. The when you get back to a certain time, everybody's speaking Welsh in Britain. That's for sure. It was dominant at one point. Oh, King Chucky the Third, says Sean. Hello, Sean. King Chucky the Third. Anybody hear about him? Anybody hear about King Chucky the Third? There's they've all been talking about his death recently. They've all been saying, "Oh, there was a rider with a black flag covering the thing. Maybe it means he's dead." Do you think it means he's dead? They were saying everybody's desperate for him to have a something. Anyway, hot tip to Richard Grove. Yeah, wow. Hat tip. He is. He's a good boy, Richard Grove. He's done a lot of work on a lot of stuff. It's very interesting. Really, I like the style. One of the styles I like is that sort of using something like the brain to keep a database, and it's very much like family tree research. You've got these branches of information that are connected with other information that's connected with other information, and yeah, he's a man who really goes through a lot. He knows a lot, and he's very interesting. I'm trying to catch up with people like that, but what I find is what's really fun is that by the time you think you're going to catch up, you just realize you've learned a load of different information, and then you just cross paths, start talking and go blah, 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 and it's really interesting because you both spread more information to each other. Oh my god, humans, it's just human race too. All our bloodlines are in debt to the Cathars. There's no doubt about that. Whichever generation you're from. Snow White, hello, evening. How are you? Nice to see you in here. If you have any questions, this will probably be going on for another 20 minutes, maybe more. It depends. Maybe it'll all kick off. I thank you all for turning up. Thank you for coming and watching and being involved. I really, I'm so excited about I'm hopefully it'll be out on Friday. Who do they think they are? Really, I think it's going to be interesting. Because like I say, it's not a complete dig at Jordan Peterson. It's an acceptance that there may be something to that, the bloodlines. So let's look at it. Let's map out some of the big bloodlines or big personalities and their bloodlines, and let's work out if there's any crossover with the big bloodlines, and then we'll be able to put any doubt to rest, won't we? Be able to put any doubt to rest, and probably we'll just be looking at bloodlines forever. Adrian Gilbert's YouTube channel is excellent for British history. I love it. While I'm doing this sort of stuff, I'm doing research here, doing research there. I've got a couple of tabs open here and there, and I've got some sort of history program playing in the background. It's terrible. It's like it's nowadays. I used to just sit in front of a TV and or media and taking the information, and now I'm doing 2 bits of research about something else and watching something else at the same time. And like what I found is that it's just constantly, my brain will constantly react and keep like certain parts of all of that information together in roughly the correct places. So I do any suggestions for shows. So Adrian Gilbert's YouTube channel, I'm gonna have to write that down and hopefully remember it. I probably already watched a load of it. He wrote at least one of Wilson and Blackett's books. He's not anything to do with the guy. Have you seen there's a guy who says Welsh is actually ancient Egyptian language, and that they're one of the ones who left and ended up landing in Britain years and years, maybe one of the lost tribes of Judah, maybe, who knows. I can't remember what that guy's called. He's interesting. My dad always said to me, try to understand why somebody is doing what they're doing and what's behind it. Yeah, but sometimes it's esoteric. Hello, Bertus Campoff. That's a brilliant name. I've gone through a couple of Bertuses. Connection is also timing, reading, seeing, feeling the other. Yeah, most definitely. Trying to understand. You try and understand people on loads of different levels, but some people you just can't read, you just can't get. And if you to get a read of them, maybe it's better to know how they got there. I find that sometimes, just like with the Hewson family tree, I followed Barbara Hewson, who was she openly defended like Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris publicly, and she was a very weird contrarian. Really, she was someone who always liked to be on the other side of the fight. Her father was the same. I didn't know this until I'd already gone back. I followed her family tree back, and I ended up back in the 1400s, about 1475, and with the Merchant Adventurers Company. And when Elizabeth the First eventually took the throne, the family was given lands to colonize Ireland, and they spread out all over Ireland. The Hewson family, Bono is also in the Hewson family. He's of Castle Hewson originally. And so there's loads of Hewsons dotted all over Ireland now who were given bits of land. And if you go back through their family history, it's nearly always the same stories. It's contrary to what you expect. They're fighting on the opposite sides that you would expect. They're taking the opposite angles. They often act completely different than you'd expect. And they did weird things. One of her ancestors, her great grandfather, I think it is, yeah, great grandfather, shot his chambermaid for no reason while she was preparing something. She was in the pantry and he just walked up and just shot her in the back. Got put in a mental home and then released about 5 years later quietly, and nothing mentioned about it. Her father would always do the opposite. After I wrote the articles, they a brilliant Dame Allen on Twitter. He's a brilliant guy. He was also interested in Hewson and had a running battle with her. And he found her loads of stuff her dad had said, and it was just the opposite of the time. Following her through her family history, you discover who she is by seeing the same pattern repeat all of the time. One of her ancestors was a Catholic fighting on was a Protestant Catholic fighting for the Irish Catholics against the Protestant army. It didn't make any sense. After 5 years after 10 years after they had the Catholics had dug up his family's dead bodies and laid them out in front of the church to smite the family and stuff. They were always doing the opposite, and it really made sense. Why would they colonize? Why would they be the colonizers? Because they're the ones who don't seem like the people, or they've been trained, or they've the part of their breeding that they don't see they come across as the opposite of the masters, because they're doing the opposite things. They're contrary to the state, so they colonize better. They keep control of people better because people want to rebel against them, but then they feel akin to them because they are, as a fallacy would tell you, feel that they got the same common enemy, but they're not a common enemy. They're just contrary, and it doesn't make any sense. So it makes sense why that family line did so well within that framework contextually. You can learn a lot by people by going back through their time like that. You can find tons of infos on Royal by researching lace pattern copyrights. Oh my God, it's true. It's true. Now, does anybody here know where the center of the lace industry was in the UK in the mid 1980s? Do you know? Ashby de la Zouch up in Leicestershire was one of the famous places for lace. And also, I believe that the Escher Weiss, Schwab's father's company, originally started making lace as well. and Coates Company, which Laura Koonsberg father once managed a branch of in Peru. Look at that sort of connection. Peru also did the same sort of things. The clothing industry was extremely wealthy back in the day. It's what everybody spent their money on, was their bloody hats and their bloody dresses and their bloody fancy breeches. And back then, if you think things were so, actually no, things were really well made back then. I have to say, really well made. You didn't have any messing around. You had extreme professionals making your stuff back then. They were tradesmen who didn't mess about at all. And it was easy to make some of those. I mean, like I said, I grew up in the 17th century, so I was always dressed with breeches. I had, all of the garb on. I had a hat that was a lovely felt hat that was probably a rich man's hat back in the day, though, because felt was a expensive thing to get back during the 1600s. Yes, the Puritan era outlawed lace. Yes, you can see where why the Puritans didn't make that much money and lost their power somewhat. I'm proud to be Welsh. Shameful I wasn't taught my mother tongue Welsh or Welsh history. Yeah, agreed. Yazzie. I'm proud to be Welsh, and it is shameful I wasn't taught we were taught it, but by this time they've knocked the language out of us through banning it for years. If you was caught speaking Welsh back in the day, they'd hang the big wooden thing round your neck, like wooden plank round your neck. Was it the wooden spoon? That's what you get with the term wooden spoon. I can't remember. Maybe my myths are merging with another myth there. But basically, you used to be punished by having a chain with a big piece of wood wrapped around you to show you were a Welsh speaker, to knock it out, because that's what colonizers do. They don't make us any less Welsh. Honestly, the Welsh and the English are very different. And the Welsh is very different from each other. North Wales, West Wales, and two bits of West Wales, the martial lord areas, the traitors, and the South Walians, who are basically Pembrokeshires, which basically then a strange mix of English in there too. But when you go back in history, you only stay Welsh for a certain amount of time. I have to say that. I go down the Welsh line on my family tree, and then there's a load of other lines. Woo! And one of the lines is Wedmore, the old Wessex seat of power, Wedmore in Somerset. And that would make sense that on the other lines goes back round to being from Wedmore, and it was originally the Wedmore. So it was of Wedmore, and Vedmore become what it was eventually. Once there was a selection of my ancestors who, on the Vedmore side, who seemed to have been criminals. I tell you, criminals and ne'er-do-wells, can't trust them at all. A whole group of them who were all brothers who were in jail all the time. I love it. This is the other thing, the disconnection about family history. I've done Jordan Peterson's family history. I'm looking at his family history. I'm not. You're not able to. I'm not really looking at his current family. So it's not disrespectful in that sense. You go back past then, and then you're disconnected from the story, but it's still your story, which is very interesting. Maybe allows people to cross a gap. I wonder if we'd be a true republic now if Cromwell hadn't been a Puritan. Yeah, but I think Cromwell was a flux. He was an anomaly, and the world went back to roughly the same way it was. But it wasn't just Cromwell. It was the Great Puritan Migration really started with the Tudors. It was really Mary when she took over, and just like that thought. Can you imagine saying how your great dad or on this side or great grandmother on this side had been burned at the stake only 150 years ago. But your kids will be like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I want to hang around here, because what if that flips again? What if a Catholic gets in charge again and they're crazy like Mary Tudor? And once they, so that, I think that was the start of it. But there was also, it was just constant war for war's sake, and that religious persecution, that fear of it, really then like was part of why the English Civil War happened and why Cromwell happened. But remember, they despised Cromwell afterwards, is what a lot of people say. But I think that's also the royal history books writing a lot of that. He had one over on them, that's for sure. He had one over. Interesting that the Walton family sold massive amount of shares this week. It is. It probably is interesting. I wonder what are the Walton families up to? What do they know that we don't know? Well, probably the shipping stuff that's happening at the moment. Like I say, that Yemen stuff, it makes a big difference. If it's going to take 10 times longer to get your stuff, then that passes on to the consumer, and we're heading towards the great take-in. So they're looking for excuses for us all to be in lots of debt. We had a tunnel full of murals of the Charterists in Newport. I know! We used to... So in Newport, in the next town over, we used to be taken in primary school, and I got taken a couple of times and in high school to Newport to do a tour around Newport, and we would go by and we would follow the march of the Charterists, who marched down to Newport, wanting rights, wanting to have a charter, wanting some separation of the powers and some sort of like accountability. The mining communities were hellish hellscapes. They were, I mean, just complete injustice all the time, people starving to death, type stuff. So the community had to be really active, and Welsh communities really interested. They marched down to Newport and the English shot them. You still got in the hotel in Newport, you've got the bullet holes still in the wall where they fired upon the Charterists, and a tunnel that had loads of beautiful murals of the marches, and it's like historic tunnel, and they demolished it. They completely, I mean, they want to erase our history and then replace it with another history. They'll give us something that is about the current trending history. It's such a shame that is gone. Such a shame. Bono is a bit of everything. Yeah, the Hewson family, when you get back to 1475, weren't Irish. The Hewson family were all British royal family up north. Now, they started to be given lands and flee away just after the Northern rebellions. So likelihood, because they were in bed with the crown, they also had this thing of having to be in conflict and not conflict and against the people who you were living around. So that also would take a certain type of character to be then rewarded by the royal family at that time. Bono's a Hewson, great pretender. He is. Oh yeah, he's a big pretender. Pretending, body, blah. In case anyone's wondering, I'm a Wilson and Blackett fanboy, laughing a lot. Yeah. Oh, well, I'll watch some of Wilson Blackett. I'll wind it up now. Gonna go now. Holy shite, still going. Rewind inevitable. Late to join. Hey, Ray J. Thank you for your kind words earlier as well. Cheers, and I'm glad you made it. Yeah, I'm still going. I do tend to blabber on though about history. Cromwell let the tribe back in after Edward I kicked them out in 1290. Hey, they just like, no one can keep anybody out. Pedro 58. Which tribe are you talking about? Let the tribe back in. Are you talking about him allowing Charles II back into power, or are you talking about the French? Are you talking about which of the many tribes? Because this is the thing we were talking about. There's hundreds of thousands, if not more, tribes that you're related to. Can't get out of it. Can't hide away from it. Ellen, Tommy Stick, the wood with notches for speaking the language. Ooh, Tommy Stick. I didn't know about that, but that makes sense. Gareth Bale and Johnny Vedmore have similar devotions and love and their passion. God give it. Gentle Welsh heart. Thank you, Gareth Bale. Oh man, he kept on my favorite human being in the world, my man Monkey, my favorite man in the world. He's my brother from another mother. He went to Gareth Bale's high school. Gareth Bale's a famous football player, etc. Welsh not. No, Welsh, yes. And I think I sent a list of videos and link to email to you sometime. Man, do you realize how many emails I get from with loads of links in, and they keep having to come out? I did. Did you put Wilson and Blackett? Because I'll search my email box for Wilson and I'll watch something later. Hey, big nose and tiny hats. Oh yeah, are you talking about my family now? Yes, you talk about my lot, my great granddad, Pa Lou. He had a bit of a nose on him. I tell you, he had a bit of a wide nose. I wonder if my nose is going to get like it. I look in the mirror like, is it going to wind up? I'm probably 2 by 2. Oh. 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 4 by 4 by 4. Another word Welsh. Polymathing. Awesome. I'm glad to see the Welsh guys are hanging around here as well, causing trouble. I like to see that. Right, gang. So I will try. Thank you, Dark Commission. I will try my bestest to have this thing out. Who do they think they are? By Friday. And it's going to be really interesting to see the reaction. I don't know how it's going to go. Maybe people won't like it. Maybe people will like it. But I'm just positive. I'm just like, I'm doing this for very good reasons. I'm going to enjoy this. And I'll have a podcast out on Thursday. Probably this Thursday. Hopefully this Thursday, the day before. With Fox Green. I'll try and put out for my patrons in probably tomorrow. And that is a really interesting discussion about the future and where we can expect technology to go and what we need to do to shape that technological future. It's a really important one. And I think that's it. My dad was a Welsh speaker from Carmarthenshire. Hence my interest in Welsh history. Yeah, Carmarthenshire is an interesting place. I've known a lot of Carmarthen boys in my time. Vedmore, maybe a better. Well, I do. Brian McMahon. I hope I pronounced your name right, McMahon. Brian, you're from Scotland, I take it, or are you from Ireland? No, you got the clover there. You got to be Irish. Part of my family are from Ireland as well, and in a sense, we're all bit Irish. We're all bit Welsh. We're all bit English. When we get back into the heritage, we're all a bit French. We're all a bit German. We're all a bit everything. Ellen, I just want to say thanks for all your support and your help. You're great to me. I really do appreciate it. I really do. You are a diamond. Nanite to Snow White, and that's it, gang. Thank you very much for joining me today on this here episode. And I will just play it so just so you can see the flashes again. I'll give you one more play just going out on this episode of Who Do They Think They Are? Support me on Patreon, on Ko-Fi, or Buy Me a Coffee. If you're on Newspaste or JohnnyVedmore.com, buy me a coffee and stuff. I really appreciate it at a time where things are hard. If you want me to do ancestry on your own family, I do charge, but I will. I'm trying to bring a package together so I can do that as a side project to be able to support the independent media work. So I can promise you a brilliant family history and a video for your family. And so I'll go out with this and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, got to the end.
students ask me sometimes why I study history. It's like, well, because history is about you. That's why. It's like history tells you who you are. You can't because you only live a little while. How the hell can you figure out who you are? So you need all this collective wisdom and all this dream-like information and all this mythology and all this narrative to inform you about what you are beyond what you see of yourself. Unless you're aware of the heroic stories of the past and the metaphysics of consciousness, let's say, because you don't know what you are, what you could be, because you're a historical creature.